Good morning, Detective.
I'm afraid I did not. I was hoping for at least a moment. Finding the Major's killer is the only thing that will put my mind...
In that case, Detective, what... in that snow? If someone was out there, we'd have another body on our hands.
I realize how strange it sounds. I would not believe it myself if I had...
Staff have reported seeing things in the dark before, but it always just turns out to be shadow. I'm afraid our Lizzie is not well. I think the events of yesterday were too much for her. We'll have to just make do without her this morning.
As Wordsworth once stated, rest and be thankful. Perhaps a chance of peace and relaxation will work wonders.
She is currently eating breakfast alone in the dining room. It's how she prefers it. But if you wish... I would, but I'm afraid I found this morning that the telephone lines aren't working. The snow continued, even if we could use the telephone. I don't think any...
In that case, it will be up to myself.
I'll let you know if anything changes. But until some of the snow clears, enough for the carriages to arrive... Taken care of. Master Dremere and his brother, after sobering up, helped me move him into the cellar. Best place for the time being.
Très bien. I imagine there is no reason for anyone to...
Besides me, no one. Once this snow clears, we will be able to move him from the house.
Your assistance has been most valuable at... Countess, I wonder if I could ask...
That is it, detective? No,
I am afraid not, Countess. With the murderer still loose in the house, my mind is rather preoccupied.
Well then, detective, perhaps I...
Comment, madame?
I thought you might like to know what I found on the Major's body. That certainly piqued your interest.
A man has been murdered, and you find it acceptable to fool around and joke.
Oh, please, detective. Do you really think so little of me? Archibald asked for my assistance. He knows of my medical training from my days as a nurse, and I thought I would be able to help. Even...
It was not his place to grant you access to the body.
I shall remember to keep my assistance to myself next time. A single stab wound, which you no doubt already knew. The knife was held in their right hand. I would say their predominant hand. Judging by the depth of the wound, I would say there was no great force put into the strike. More a sign of defense than attack. If I had to say what weapon was used, a small sharp knife or dagger.
I understand it may be difficult for one to keep such information to yourself, but I ask you to try. Your involvement.
You are...
S'il vous plaît, Comtesse. Keep this information to... Bonjour, Monsieur Demire.
Detective Poirot, how are you?
The truth, monsieur. With each step towards uncovering the blackmailer, I am thrown to...
Is there something I can help you with? Archibald came to me and asked for my help in the matter. My brother and I dealt with it.
Merci for your help. It is a job that only the professionals should have to undertake.
It's a job that had to be done. although it may have affected my brother more than I.
How so?
At the sight of the body, the color drained from his face. Once we had reached the cellar, Zachariah took himself straight off to bed, without even a good night. Felix and Madame Vandenbosch are the only ones with keys, as far as I'm aware. Oh, and Archibald. I'm sure I heard Felix asking him to return something to it once. I have not seen him since last night. I'm sure he will have been fine after a good night's sleep. He does not need his younger brother checking in on him.
Perhaps that is exactly what he requires.
I'm not sure what he told you yesterday, Detective, but he's a big boy. He can look after.
I worry that may not be the case, monsieur. His time in the war came up in conversation more than once during our
He's still talking about it? I thought talking to the doctor...
Merci, monsieur.
Good morning, Detective. I hope you were comfortable last night.
Bonjour, mademoiselle. The room was more than pleasant, merci. I'm afraid my mind was not in a state to enjoy it to its full potential, though.
I can't imagine any of us slept soundly last night.
Hopefully guilt will be weighing heavily on someone.
I'm sorry if I was not much help last night, Detective.
On the contrary, your inside knowledge of the guests was of great help to my investigation.
His position? You mean about him living here?
Oui, even in a house this size, you must see a lot of each other.
I enjoyed having him here. When I was away with Gideon, it was comforting to know Maman was not alone. Although his work with Mr. Da Silva has kept him away from...
What can you tell me about their relationship? What?
There is not much to tell, only that there is no love lost between them. He was always quite private about his work. I know that he was helping Mr. Da Silva with some safety matters.
I found a check addressed to the Major from Monsieur Da Silva.
Ah, that's right, security. With his military training, he helped Mr. Da Silva prepare for any... A development? Oh, Detective, I knew I could...
It may not be the news you had wished for, though. And...
Addressed to me? I don't...
Pardonnez-moi, mademoiselle. Although it has been written in the same manner, using similar phraseology, it was not sent for your eyes, rather the Major's. Or at least that...
I'm sorry, Detective, I don't understand. It is addressed to him or...
I found it in the Major's study yesterday while conducting my preliminary search. Whether he is the author of the letter or the rest...
Heavens no, he could not do that.
You did not hesitate for a moment.
Why would he do such a thing? And then to send a letter to himself.
Merci for your...
Useful?
Exactement.
Whatever you need.
Your assist... Order and method. Another success. Magnifique.
If it will help you find the Major's killer, of... When he returned from the war, he was a different man.
I cannot speak from experience, but I can only imagine.
The first weeks he would wake in the night, screaming. I found him one night, cowering behind the desk in the study.
That is not why you two are no longer close?
And not at all, Detective. We were always very different in nature. While I had always wanted to follow an academic path.
And yet, he ended up in the military. Quite the contrast.
Our father demanded that he at least try to do something with his life. And when someone... It wasn't long before he moved out from the family home after his return from the army. I always assumed that he...
Oh. Mm-hmm. Huh.
Whatever you need.
Your assistant... Ah. Oh. Aha. Bonjour, madame. You must be the wonderful...
Wonderful and modest, sir. I am Rihanna.
My taste buds thank you for the ravishing meal last night. It has been some time since I ate...
Glad to hear it, sir.
S'il te plaît, madame. A detective is fine.
In that case, mademoiselle is fine for me, and I will ignore your presumption of...
Très bon, mademoiselle.
That's right. I've seen staff come and go, but a house always needs a trustworthy cook.
I agree. But if I was to eat what you prepare every day, I fear I may be the size...
Not a bad thing, detective. You could do with some...
Well, with the snow still not clearing, we may be stuck here for the weekend. Perhaps I should...
I did. Monsieur Archie told me what had happened. Bruises can swell fast, so I took him some ice to bring it down.
How was the Major when you saw him?
Grumpy.
I suppose one would not take kindly to being
punched or not, he was as ungrateful as ever.
I shall not keep... Bonjour, madame. May I offer my
Thank you, detective, but they are not necessary. What can...
I was hoping you would be prepared to answer some questions.
If I must. I'm sure you're aware he was not the easiest man to get along with.
A hot temper is reason enough to...
His mouth often acted before his brain. Perhaps someone had grown tired of dealing with it. Seeing as I heard Mr. Becker's in what I would describe as an unnecessary...
You heard them yourself?
How could I not? The volume they were shouting at, I could hear them from the...
You did not think it fitting to tell me this?
I didn't think Felix was going to wind up dead and a murderer loose in my... I assume you are talking about the supposed...
Oui, madame.
It arrived shortly after the first. Rather coincidental.
I'm not sure I understand.
He no doubt had secrets hidden away. But do you honestly think Felix had anything of value to...
Perhaps you should enlighten me.
Well, he was here, living in my house, eating my food, prepared by... I wouldn't put it past him to have written it himself, in the hopes of getting some...
And the other letters?
He probably wrote those too. If Angeline paid the first, that would have given him the money to pay the second letter. He is the White Knight, saves the day and expects to live here. What is it you...
You two have been friends for some time now. And while I do not mean to...
If you are trying to insinuate that Mr. De Silva and I are running around like...
Oui, I understand they worked together.
Mr. De Silva was the voice of reason that my husband should have listened to more often, instead of...
Merci, madame. I must act on... I cannot see the logic in this. Is there something... Some would say a lucky guess.
Is there something I can help you with? You have got the wrong end of the stick, Detective. Maman has snapped at him recently, but it was something to do with the letter. I heard them in the library before Maman shouted and...
Could it have been the blackmail letter that...
Why would Maman be upset with him over the letter?
Madame is of a very different opinion from yourself regarding his connection with the...
That is what she told you? She has always been one to make a quick, if not rash decision, but she... I don't recall telling him directly. I did not want Maman to find out it had been paid.
Madame believes he may have been behind all the letters, and taking your payment of the first, then used it to pay the second.
I never knew Maman had such an imagination. Where would she get us?
That is a question I was hoping you maybe...
You have met him? Do you really think he's capable?
It is a plan only the most crooked and underhanded could create. Is that the Major? I shall not keep you any... I must take a different approach. Come, my little grey sat. Things are beginning to become...
Is there something I can help you with? I'm afraid it had been that way for some time. Maman is not forthcoming with her emotions, as I'm sure you are aware. But I could...
What gave you that impression?
There was not one particular thing that she expressed. It was just the way she spoke to him, and...
I shall not keep you...
Whatever you need, Detective. Certainly, Detective.
Huh. Ah. Ah. Oh. This will not get me any close. This will not get me any. I must take a different approach if I am. The pieces of the puzzle are finally. I must act on. Is there something? Come, my little grey cells. What a revelation! Order and method. I cannot see the logic in this. I should not be surprised. Come, my little grey cells. I must take a different approach. Another success.
Detective Poirot, I have been asked to inform you that Lady Vandenbosch has returned to her room, and she
Merci. Madame, ça...
They may not be the exact words she used, but I'm sure you can imagine.
Ah. Oh. Oh. Aha. Huh. Is there something I must act on thought? This will not get me any closer. Order and method. That... Some would say a lucky guess. Huh. Aha. Ah. Huh.
Detective Poirot, what do you think?
I have something I wish to discuss with you.
Well, I hope it is important enough to justify
I assure you it is.
Good, because this has gone on far too long. We are snowed in this house while a murderer...
I can understand your frustrations, but it is not as
You were once an incompetent officer, and now...
If I was not being lied to and misled at every turn, perhaps the murderer would...
I hope you are not suggesting I had something...
I am suggesting that if I had the support that everyone claims they are offering, we would be in a very different...
If you have something you want to ask, We met before Angeline was born, so he was often at the house when she was...
And where was it you two met?
I was attending an event. Felix was also in attendance as a servant.
So it was not through the Viscount that you two...
I did not require my husband to start conversations on my...
It was you that instigated it then.
My, detective. That active... Edwin spent much of his time away on business before Angeline was born. Felix was a welcome distraction from the loneliness of the house.
You were alone in the house?
The staff continued their duties, of course, but trying to get any sort of sophisticated or cultured conversation...
And when Angeline was born?
Edwin remained at home. It was his duty as a father.
And the Major?
He had his own business and life to tend to, but we remained in touch via letter. Around the time of Edwin's passing... I'm sure he has hundreds of letters in there. Most of them could and should have been thrown away a long time ago. You are...
I refer to the letter addressed to you.
Romantic nature. Oh, please, detective.
He made his intentions quite clear in the letter. I must admit I myself was surprised.
You really do have quite the active imagination, detective. If that is how you wish to interpret it, so be it. But I can assure you...
I think that is all for... cannot see the logic in this. Is there something... I must act on thought. The pieces of the puzzle of...
Is this real? He may have stayed in my home, but Felix was a grown man, Detective.
But it does not surprise you that he had such a...
We have been friends, and he has been there for Angeline for many years. But you find it strange that he keeps a reminder of us?
What I do find strange is that if he did hold a flame for you, what...
If he did, it was not reciprocated. I have not even considered another since my husband's passing.
I think that is all...
Detective Poirot, are you any closer to uncovering the truth?
I am, mademoiselle. I can confirm that he was not...
So the author is still out there?
Oui, but it will not be long before they are apprehended, and the only letters they shall be penned.
Your confidence is rather assuring, thank you. I'm sorry, Detective. I did not intend to leave you...
No apology is required. It actually made me question my whole chain of thinking. What if there had been a collusion between them?
Oh my, Detective.
Every guest has a motive. You confirmed that with the mention of Mademoiselle Conrad and the Major's fight. Supplying one another with a rock-solid alibi would surely...
But not you.
Correct, mademoiselle. It would take much...
I haven't seen that book in so long. Yes, it was a gift for my 10th birthday. I have...
It sounds as though there is a side to the Major I did not get to see.
Not common, but if he had been away for some time, he would bring me a small memento from his travels. There were. I'm afraid they may have gathered some dust being in the storage room for so long.
It sounds as though he had always cared about...
His presence at the house was comforting for us both after Father died, even if sometimes he would... That's right. Ever since I can remember, Felix has been...
It seems as though she has a number of support networks. The Major, her friendship with the...
Maman has many friends. I know how she may seem to Moss, but once...
There is a further shell waiting...
Oh, very good.
Forgive me, mademoiselle.
It's quite all right. You are not the only one that feels a razor tongue. She's grateful you are here, especially now. What... They have often come to blows when it concerns Maman. They are both trying to protect her, but they themselves cannot seem to get along.
She spoke of his desire to join the... how do you describe it?
This isn't the first time she has vocalized that concern. She thinks the Major...
And you do not agree?
I will not deny he has shown interest in Maman's social circles, but they have been friends since even before I was born. Sure... How do you mean, Detective?
I imagine a house of this size is rather costly, keeping...
Maman looks after the financial side of the house,
but I think she has had to ask him more than once for a...
I shall not keep... I cannot see the logic in this. I must take a different approach if I am... What a revelation! Order and method. That... This will not get me any close. Come, my little grey cells. I should not be surprised by my...
Is this... Who I allow in my house is none of your business. I do not...
I did not think you were one for charity.
I would not expect you to think much of anything. There is no need to talk on it any further. Need I repeat myself, detective? Men and women can... You're... How many times do I have to tell... I have...
Madame, you continue to withhold the truth.
And you continue to get on my last nerve.
But when it impedes my investigation...
If only you were this focused on finding the blackmail...
Madame...
Very well. I did not lie about how we met. I was attending an event, raising money for... Oh, it had been some time since I had returned home, and was rather missing English soil. He was a warm reminder of home, and I enjoyed conversing with him. I shall go no further with the details, but I will say, I had no intention on being unfaithful to my husband.
The Viscount never questioned Mademoiselle's birth?
In his mind, he had no reason to, and he shouldn't have had to. It was my... I told Felix that he was to stay away, but he had no intention to. He became an uncle figure to... I could not tell her the truth. Too much time.
And what were the Major's thoughts on revealing that...
He wanted to tell her everything. He wanted her to know exactly who he was, but I told him no. I tried to retrieve them from the safe after everyone had retired last night, but when I opened...
When I entered the study this morning, they were as visible as a red notice on a police station wall.
I would appreciate if you did not compare them to...
Pardon,
But that does mean someone else in the house has seen them.
a mystery that is still yet to be solved.
It must be. But I...
And the Major?
Felix promised me he wouldn't tell a soul, and I believed him.
You did not think anyone knew, and that is why you disregard...
If you bow to these criminals, they will only try to claw...
I think that is...
Detective Poirot, how is your...
Monsieur Starling, I must admit, I have learned much.
You'll be wrapping the case up.
One has never finished learning, monsieur, and in this case, I shall need to
It might help to vocalize your thinking.
Monsieur, would you gather the guests and staff in...
Right away, Detective.
I shall reveal all once everyone is together.
Detective, what is the meaning of all this?
Madame, I ask that you all lend me your ears for only a few moments. What I have to say is of great significance to everyone. You are all invited here to celebrate the engagement of Mademoiselle Angeline van den Bosch and Monsieur Gédéon Demire, the coming together of two prevalent families. But the celebrations were short-lived, as Major Felix Hagen was found dead in his study by a young servant of the house. It then became my responsibility and obligation as a detective to uncover the truth behind his demise. My initial examination of his study exposed a number of things I did not expect to find. Things I have no desire to divulge at this time, but what I can say is this. It was no simple murder. A letter demanding ransom for a continued silence confirmed this. I am sure some, if not all of you, have heard whispers of a series of blackmails that have plagued the social elite in recent weeks. After hearing of the letters in the Major's study, you may ask if it was him behind the letters. You may further ask if he was preparing his next threat to another unsuspecting victim. It is a question that crossed even my mind. That was until I sought the truth. That in fact it was the Major that had fallen victim to our blackmailer Mystérieux. Last night I spoke with you all, confirmed your whereabouts in the house over the course of the evening, and while I would have expected such questioning to reveal a potential suspect, what I learned was that it could not have been one of you.
What do you mean, not one of us? The man was stabbed. He hardly did that to himself. There is still a killer in the house.
Pardon, monsieur, if you would allow me to finish. It could not have been only one of you. Rather a partnership, in cahoots, if you will. Conversations today have revealed facts that I was not expecting to discover. And although they may have muddied and complicated my investigation, what I must do to bring the guilty parties to justice has become clearer. Those of you that spun stories in an attempt to confuse and derail my investigation have made a grave mistake in underestimating my intelligence. Other detectives may fall for such deception, but I can assure you, Detective Poirot is no such fool. My investigation is far from over, and swift justice shall be dealt to those that have committed such appalling acts and have continued to mislead and lie to protect themselves. Now, I must continue mon enquête, and I shall leave you to consider that you may be beside a cold-hearted killer. Bonsoir. Monsieur Sterling, un moment.
Quite the speech, detective.
Merci, but it was not made to entertain. More to warn the guilty parties that I am...
Well, if there is anything. Is that really necessary?
The murderer remains at large, and there is still no sign of the weapon.
Of course. I still just cannot imagine...
It may be hard to imagine.
Nothing. But I was so preoccupied with the Major.
Perhaps it was just my mind playing games again.
Maybe one of the guests got lost and wandered... Master Hagen had a key, obviously, and... When requested, aye. If something is required from there when Master Hagen is not around...
Forgive me. If he is not around...
It's not what you think, Detective.
What I think is that you have been trusted with a copy of the key.
I only lied because of the trouble I can get into with Lady...
At this moment, monsieur, you should be more worried about the trouble you shall find your...
I know how it will sound, but I lost my key. I must have set it down... I should have said this morning. I'm sorry.
Monsieur, I am not quite sure you understand this.
I am well aware, Detective.
Would you allow a man with a smoking gun to remove his bullet?
I suppose not.
I would like to begin my searches now, since it is
I may not be back when you return. Here is the key to the other rooms.
Merci. I shall guard.